First and 12. A weekly roundup of America's most competitive football conference, the Big 12. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry.
Welcome on in, everybody. Happy Tuesday evening to you. Thanks for being with us on the program. Alex Kirry, Mitch Harper. You just heard Mitch's Cougar Tracks just moments ago, getting done right before news, and now we switch gears over to the full-on Big 12 conference. We're jumping in right here. Mitch Harper, how's it going, brother? Everything good for you?
It's good, Alex. It's seeing the college football playoff rankings and maybe a little bit of respect to the Big 12. So much to unpack. So happy to be on board with you today. And over the next 2 hours, we'll be diving into all things Big 12 football.
Well, let's get right into that then, and let's get going with this thing, because as it starts off here, you just mentioned it, and the college football playoff rankings roll out this evening, and I know that ESPN pretends like they haven't seen they haven't seen how this thing rolls out. I know that they've said that we don't know exactly how this thing is supposed to roll out, but to me, this one is as big as it gets. Like you said, the Big 12 getting the reaction and getting, I think the rankings that they probably more likely deserve. You could even make an argument that you could probably see some of these teams up even a little bit higher, but certainly you have to be excited about the idea of a number 7 BYU facing off against a number 8 Texas Tech in these first playoff rankings. Those two move up just one from the AP rankings, but Utah jumps all the way up to 13 from what I think was their AP ranking was, 17, I think? And so they jump up right there. So right off the bat, you have some teams right there, but those are the three that are represented in the Big 12. And to me, that's as good as it is. I mean, if Utah keeps winning, if Utah fans are listening and Utah keeps winning, they just keep going up those rankings, because it's just, you're going to see teams keep toppling and going the other direction. It happens every year. These are just the first rankings, but my first blush reaction was, wow. When I kept seeing that Utah wasn't being put into it, I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on right now? And then to see them at 13, I was pleasantly surprised, because for them, if they keep winning, and something tells me the way they're playing that they really will, that those teams, those three teams, will be in that discussion, and there will be the possibility there that if a team goes to the conference championship game and one of the other ones goes to the conference championship game, and Utah needs help from other people, they have to be able to make sure and put themselves out there and win every game, but they have to get the tie break to be able to figure out a way to get to the conference championship game. But if they're ranked high enough, maybe the committee looks at them and says, well, even if it's a second loss, loses in the conference championship game team, and they get out, that maybe there is the possibility of a multi-team bid for this league, which I think you and I have been talking about all season long. At no point have we seen Big 12 teams really thrown out there by national pundits to have multiple bids, really.
Utah got quite a bit of respect, I think, and for them to be in that mix of Notre Dame, Texas, Oklahoma, and then Utah among the two lost teams, I thought that was noteworthy, and they will, in some ways control their destiny. If they keep winning, they'll be in the hunt to possibly crack into the playoff. And I think for BYU at number 7, I thought that was solid for BYU. I think there's an argument to be made that they should be maybe 5 because, for BYU, the rankings that were revealed tonight, number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Indiana. Fine, that's great. Big 10, there you go. Number 3, Texas A&M. Those are 3 undefeateds. 4, 5, and 6 are 3 teams from the SEC with 1 loss, and Alabama, their 1 loss is against a 4-4 Florida State team. BYU, on the other hand, has played a pretty solid schedule. Not great, but it's been a solid schedule, and they're undefeated. I think they should be above Alabama. If you want to say they're behind Georgia and Ole Miss, okay, fine, but still, I think BYU should be above at least Alabama.
Yeah, my thought was put them ahead of Ole Miss even, because Ole Miss, because everybody looks and they go, well, the head-to-head, Georgia beat Ole Miss, and you go, well, yeah, okay, so does that mean Ole Miss needs to be right behind them with 1 loss? It's like, no, put them back another one. Make way for the power conference undefeateds, right? I mean, the reality is that's kind of the way we look at it is, look, if there's going to be a power conference team in there that's still undefeated after 8 or 9 games, and remind me, I think last year BYU was 9-0, and they found themselves in the exact same spot. Number 7, waiting behind a bunch of other teams that I think you looked at and you went, okay, look, yeah, we know what conference you're a part of, the Big Ten, the SEC, and at that point, like a Miami team in the ACC. The ACC is absolutely falling apart. I don't think people hanging their hat on Louisville, Virginia, Georgia Tech. Everyone's wondering if those teams are going to show up or if they're going to end up, kind of falling by the wayside because all those teams are one-loss teams. And if they take a second loss, then people aren't going to look at the ACC much longer as in getting that respect. However, teams like Utah, who if let's say BYU loses to Texas Tech this weekend, let's say BYU beats Texas Tech this weekend, let's say Utah wins out the rest of the way. Well, Utah's 2 losses are to Texas Tech and to BYU. And if BYU and Texas Tech end up beating each other, we're talking about strength on strength. And no one's going to argue and say, well, Utah's actually not a very good team. No, they're top 7 in every offensive and defensive category that matters. And people look and they go, well, BYU can't keep maintaining this, except for they have the whole way. And people look and go, well, Texas Tech lost a game. Yeah, they could absolutely sit down and probably beat a lot of these teams in front of them at neutral places. And that's, I think, the part that's really interesting is watching now, because I think as the bracket was it now, I hate doing this, but here we are. If the playoff were to start today, Mitch, don't you hate that? I mean, that is it's so old and busted. But if the playoff were to start today, BYU would be hosting at LaVell Edwards Stadium on the December 19th, Notre Dame, which you and I talked about at some point, okay, that would be kind of crazy. But to see it on the bracket actually written out right now as being the possibility. And by the way, Notre Dame with 2 losses, at number 10, and the way that the committee and the way that ESPN is talking about these guys, they cannot wait to put a team like Notre Dame in front of another Big 12 team. And if it takes only getting one team in, they're willing to make that sacrifice for Notre Dame, right? That's you have to have an unimpeachable record if you're in the Big 12 to have a second team to get in. They'll let your champion in because they have to. After that, all bets are off.
And I think what's interesting, too, with Notre Dame is them sitting at 10. One of their losses was to Miami, and Miami is fading. Now,
yes.
if Miami continues to fade, does Notre Dame's 2 losses still look better than Utah's 2 losses against BYU and Texas Tech? I think that's up for debate because that plays a big role into Notre Dame being in the top 10 is the fact that their 2 losses for a while were teams 2 and 3 with Miami and Texas A&M.
Right.
Texas A&M still up there at number 3, but Miami is fading, and they're fading fast. They lost at SMU this past weekend, and they could have another loss or 2. But I think the best roadmap for the Big 12 going forward, if they want to get multiple teams, they probably need BYU to lose this week to Texas Tech, and that's going to be a big one, and we'll talk more in depth about that game coming up. But they probably need BYU to lose to Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those teams
went
meet
out
in the conference championship game again, and then whoever wins that one goes to the playoff, and maybe the loser still has enough of a resume to get in, and then Utah continues to hammer teams. That's what they need from Utah is to just beat the brakes off of all the teams in the Big 12, and then you can go to quality control and all these crazy metrics that are getting thrown into the playoff rankings. And if you get that, maybe you got a recipe to get at least 2, maybe if you want to get real crazy, 3 Big 12 teams, but I don't want to go that far.
No, and think about it, too. At this point last week, we were going, what on earth is Cincinnati going to deliver the rest of the way? Well, they got absolutely blown out by Utah, and people are ignoring them and forgetting them until further notice, right? You didn't even see them sniff anywhere near these first college football playoff rankings.
They should be where Pitt's at. Pitt's at number 24. Pitt lost to West Virginia.
How about number 25, Tennessee, with 3 freaking losses? You knew they were going to shoehorn in teams like that on the first rankings. We knew this was going to happen at some point, but you're right. But again, what happened to BYU last year? They went 9-0, and then they lost 2 games in a row, and people just went, well, they're obviously, this is not for them. But then afterward, people revisit it and go, so hold on, how did SMU get in with 2 losses, and one of their losses was to another 2-loss team at BYU? Well, it's because they lost it earlier in the season. Okay, just checking the notes here. So just lose early, Notre Dame, and you'll be fine. Just lose early, SMU from last year, and you'll be fine. If you lose late in the season, well, then we don't want to talk to you anymore. I mean, Houston, we didn't know what we were going to get with those guys, and of course, they deliver the only way that a Big 12 team can, and that is to lose to a team they had no business losing to. This is what this conference delivers every week, Mitch. This is why we like it.
It's a crazy league, but I do think that the fact that they got 3 teams in the top 13 is a little bit reason for, I think, some excitement.
Yes.
Because that's a much better position than where they were at last year in these rankings. BYU, as you noted, was up to 6, and then they faded. But I think that there is a path for multiple bids, and that needs to happen for the Big 12. Last year it was the ACC who got those multiple bids with Clemson and SMU. This year it's the Big 12's turn to make that happen. But, it is dangerous with the SEC because you look at the SEC, they've got 6 of the top 12 teams in the rankings, and there's no cap on the number of teams that can come from one conference. So it's the seeds have been planted potentially to get 4 or even 5 SEC teams into that playoff, and that would be terrible for the sport in a 12-team field that is supposed to be 5 plus 7 with 7 at-large teams, but we'll see what happens. But the Big 12's in a spot to get multiple bids, and that's all I can ask for.
Look at Mitch
on this first night.
Look at Mitch working in the term no cap. I know it was the actual way that you're supposed to use it, but look at us. Looking like a couple of Gen Xers over
thought?
here. Yeah, come on. Hey, we've got more to go here on the program. We're going to take our first break. We'll come back. We've got our Big 12 headlines, of course, that we're going to feature heavily, and we're going to bring you all of those. The weekend that was in the Big 12, we also are going to have just a full show packed, including next hour, of course, our power rankings. What are they going to look like this week? And much, much more. Stay right here with us. It's KSL News Radio. It is First and 12 right here. Stay with us.